Oh, it's good to be here.
There he is.
Woo.
How did you get into the whole stream setup in time? My Lord.
Dude, I'm always on ready. What are you talking about? I'm ready. I'm ready. I got the text. I was like, boom, I'm going to my studio right now.
Well, we had a video that I can link in the description, but we were talking about all kinds of stuff last time, and you just gave such rich insights to it. And I thought, let me just set it up for you. And guys, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat as well, because we do want to be interactive. By the way, thank you guys for joining the Telegram. I see all your text here, but let me just say this. Here's my thing. The reason why I went live today was because my phone's blowing up. I've got congregation members in New York City who haven't had power for the last 24 hours, but then also we have people virtually through Texas, and then we obviously have an entire campus in Chicagoland, and so people are like, what do you think's going to happen? And you know what it did, Larry? It almost put, I think, a fear in them of like, okay, we had the assassination attempt, and then now my power's out. Is this like the beginning of the end? Is the United States going to go into flux? Are we going to go into chaos? So, what are your thoughts? What do you see going on? Just open floor.
Boy, that's a loaded question. What are my thoughts? Wow, how much time you got, bro? Because I got some thoughts. I got some thoughts on what's going on right now. Oh my goodness, Pastor Mike, we are in. Man, Pastor Josh, I want to say just real quick, that word he was given was incredible. I was like, man, if there's ever been a word that needs to go out in this time, it's that word, especially when he said the storms are not leaving, they're here. They're here. And, if I can, I'm going to go down a very quick rabbit trail here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sunday morning, right before service, of course, the day after the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump, I'm outside walking around in my yard, and I'm really just praying about the service and praying about our nation. And I heard the Lord say this to me, Pastor Mike. He said, remind the church today that the way that I operate, and I've always operated, is first the natural, then the spiritual. Just remind them of that. Is that I do not take spiritual principles and then teach natural principles from that. I take natural principles and teach spiritual principles out of that. And of course, your audience, the viewers here know exactly what I'm talking about. The Bible actually says that it's first the natural, then the spiritual. So I was thinking about a couple of things. One of the things I was thinking about is that I knew I was going to preach on a very familiar passage. I'd preached it before. I know you've preached it many times, and it was the time of Daniel, when Daniel had been seeking God because of what he's seen. He was very troubled by the visions that he's seen of the end times. Think about it. He saw things, Pastor Mike, about us. He saw the final generation. And as he's writing about the Antichrist, as he's writing about end times, God tells him to seal up the book until the days that knowledge shall increase and many shall run to and fro. So he had to take that, he had to deal with that and take that to his grave with him. Can you imagine the weight of seeing what we're living now and what the final generation was living? And he couldn't talk about it. He couldn't write about it. It was not intended for that generation to know. It was intended for the generation where knowledge shall increase and many shall run to and fro. So I'm getting ready to preach that, Pastor. And you better get ready because when you sent me the article about Hurricane Beryl hitting and beginning this process by hitting Texas. So as I'm preaching Sunday, I'm preaching my message, not thinking anything about Hurricane Beryl. And I want to read something to you, Pastor. Daniel chapter 10 tells the story of when he was praying for 21 days. And it says in Daniel chapter 10, verse 4, and this is, I got the download on the pulpit. You know how that is. While you're preaching, I was like, what? And it said, because remember, the word was that morning was, I'm speaking to my prophets and I'm speaking to my people, and I'm reminding them that the way I work in the spirit realm is I show you the natural to teach you what I'm about to do in the spirit. So it says in verse 4, now on the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, that is Tigris, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose waist was girded with gold of Ephaz, and his body was like beryl.
Whoa.
And when it hit me, I realized, I go on to teach, Pastor, that he tells him, I know you're weak. I know you're troubled. I know you've been crying out for an answer from God, and it seems like the heavens are brass. God wanted me to tell you before I told you anything. He wanted you to know the moment you prayed, I was sent on that day. But I have been battling the Prince of Persia for 21 days. I've come to encourage you. I've come to strengthen you. And the Bible says that when he touched him, Pastor, and it encouraged him, he heard that voice. But watch this, y'all. No one else around him could hear the voice except Daniel. He represented the remnant. He represented that he was going to be able to hear something in that day and time because he was tied to the end times. He represented that angel named Beryl. So here's this hurricane. It's you turn on the weather and it says Hurricane Beryl. We're safe. That's what they kept saying. We're safe. Mexico's going to get hit. Nothing to worry about, America. At the last minute, Pastor, it takes a turn. And you want to really have your mind blown, y'all? It takes the same path as the eclipse. It goes up the nation of America and follows the same path of the eclipse, which we know was a harbinger. So when he does this Hurricane Beryl hits him, I took that as a sign. First the natural, then the spiritual. When I heard Pastor Josh say the storm is here, it hit me like a ton of bricks because it confirmed in me what I believe that God is telling me. This is the beginning. This is not the end. It's not winding down. But to the believer, just like Daniel, Daniel's a type and shadow of the remnant. We're going to hear and we're going to see. And Beryl is a sign that something has shifted, that God is visiting us to touch the remnant, to encourage us, and to let us know he has heard our cry. There's been a battle that's going on in heaven, but the answer is on the way. Woo! Come on, somebody.
That is fire. I mean, y'all, what you just got is rich. You need to share this broadcast and get that word out. Okay, let's just keep going deeper because as some of you may know from Exodus chapter 28, verse 20, that Beryl is one of the 12 stones on the high priest's breastplate. But what's crazier is the color of Beryl is actually referred to as aquamarine.
What? I didn't know that.
This is why me and you we link up like we do, because we just start spinning these revelations out like it's a prophetic swirl. So it's emerald and aquamarine are the types of Beryl, and in Exodus chapter 28 verse 20, it was a stone on the high priest's breastplate. And as you all know, what was the high priest responsible for? Incense, sacrifice. And so I believe when Pastor Josh was saying, step into the storm, it was almost like, hey, this aquamarine stone needs to be in your breastplate. You step into this moment. It's a time for intercession. It's a time for prayer. It's a time for burnt offerings. I'm talking new covenant, but what does that mean? New covenant. And you know what's crazy? I'm going to tie in a prophetic word that I gave Sunday. Matter of fact, if you guys want me to show the prophetic, I had a prophetic flow on Sunday for how long, Evan?
Had to have been 30 straight minutes.
It was?
Wow. I think so. 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah.
Put it on the wide. So, 20, 30 minutes, I was in a prophetic flow on Sunday. I didn't know. For me, it felt like 7 minutes. So I'm a little embarrassed right now. I think I sabotaged our whole service flow.
It was worth it.
But can we get that footage and premiere it on my channel this week?
Absolutely.
And let me tell you why. And we got the bishop on the broadcast right now. So here's the thing. I started talking about how I saw people in this next season making great sacrifices. In other words, the Lord telling them, like, I saw people selling plots of land and just offering it up before the Lord. I saw people giving boats, giving cars, like just radical generosity. But I think that's connected to the high priest because people are stepping into a high priestly duty. They're stepping into a high priestly role. I believe this is a time of promotion for many people as well. So it's like, I just love that revelation. I want to kick it back to you, Pastor Larry, but it's like, so Beryl is a hurricane in the natural.
Well, then he goes on to say, so basically on the fly, I said, look, this is
break it down.
I said, I'm going to name this angel, even though he's not named in scripture, I'm going to name him the angel Beryl from now on. He's called Beryl to me. And the bottom line is because he's so tied to this moment that we're in. and he represents, Pastor, a visitation. He is his
Come on.
own assignment. This assignment was twofold. Number one, God said, before I do anything else, before I touch you, before anything, God said he wanted you to know he heard you. The heavens were not brass over you. It may seem like you're weary. You're wondering if God is even hearing you. He heard you the moment. But I've been held back by spiritual warfare. I've been in a fight with the Prince of Persia. But God wanted me to know for 21 days I've been trying to get to you. And Michael, God sent the reinforcements to release me. Get this, y'all. Y'all got to get this part because nobody preaches this part. It says he released me just on assignment to tell you he heard you, and number two, to touch you and strengthen you and encourage you. And once Daniel felt that encouragement, felt the vigor and the strength come back in him, heard the voice of the angel Beryl that I named, he said this is so powerful. He said, yet I heard the sound of his words, and while I heard the sound of his words, I was in a deep sleep on my face and my face to the ground. Suddenly this hand touched me, made me tremble to my knees and on the palms of my hands. And he said to me, "Oh, Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak to you. Stand upright. Stand up." I'm telling you, the Bible, God is saying, having done all to stand, to the remnant stand. He said, stand up, for I have been sent to you. While he was speaking this word to me, I stood trembling. Then he said, do not fear, Daniel, for I have heard, God heard you from the first day. But get this. It goes on to say at the end of that passage, Pastor, hardly anybody preaches this. He says to Daniel, now, are you good? Because I've got to get back to the battle. Michael has other things to do. He is holding Persia back for me. But here's what I want you to know. This is so powerful about what Pastor Josh said, that the storm is here and the storm is not going to subside. This is a confirmation of that word. And that is this. He says something. He goes, Prince of Persia held me up. Michael had to come and release me. I got to go back to the fight with the Prince of Persia, and I've already been told the Prince of Greece is joining him against me. So basically this battle for you, Daniel, and for what you know and for what you have seen is so big that the principality of Persia held me up, and now he's called the Prince of Greece in as well to fight. And I'd love to stay here, but my job is not to hang out in this room for you. It is to war for you so that you here on this earth can do what our God has called you to do. And he leaves him and goes back to the battle. And I'm telling y'all, the viewers of this channel know there is no new demons. There is no new angels. The principalities that are here today are the ones that were there then. There is no new gods. The return of the gods is just a return of the enemy that we've always faced. I believe that what Daniel went through, there's so much meat in there in the fact that we had a sign of a hurricane touching a nation less than 1 week before the attempted assassination on the front runner and he turns his head by a millimeter and his life is saved. I believe something shifted this week, starting with Beryl, Pastor, all the way into all of these power outages. Because first the natural, then the spiritual. What is the enemy always trying to do? Take away our power. Because if we do not have power, we can't operate. So he starts in the natural. He cannot take it away in the spirit. So he brings fear by taking away in the natural.
Oh, this is so good. I mean, I'm about to throw my shoe at the camera right now. I'm telling you. But you know, listen, the Prince of Persia, where is this warfare happening? It's happening in the heavenlies. Matter of fact, God says, Daniel, I've already released the word, but it was delayed in getting to you because it had to go through some warfare in the heavenlies. And this is why Christians need to increase in the theological department, because when you read Ephesians chapter 6, we're talking about layers and levels of warfare, and there are territorial spirits, there are principalities and powers. Matter of fact, I think this is appropriate to share right now because it's connected. When we were in Times Square and we got access and we were able to set up a stage, we basically, I mean, what we did, the assignment was to open heavens over the gates of hell. That's basically what we did. Open heavens over the gates of hell. As you all know, New York City is a very difficult place, but it's also a port city, and it's a global interchange that happens. And what does that mean? It's a spiritual gate. And so we stood at the gate. Matter of fact, when you go into Times Square, there's a sign that says the crossroads of the world, right? Now listen what I'm about to say. So we're standing in a prophetic and spiritual portal, a gate, the crossroads of the world, and we're up on this stage. And matter of fact, and if you go back and watch it, everything I prophesied has come to pass already. Wow. Everything I said on stage has come to pass. Evan, we need to make a video of that, just showing what I said, how it happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I believe there's something to that. But here's my point. Open heavens over the gates of hell. And we had an assignment to rend the heavens. The word rend means to violently tear apart, to rend the sky. Why? Because there's atmospheric spirits. There's basically principalities and powers and rulers over New York City. And we were faithful to that assignment. It went global internationally. People saw what happened. And then Lou Engle shows up. And just weeks ago, and he said, Pastor Mike, the Lord told me to move into New York City for a time, a month or more, and to fast and to pray and to continue the work. And so then all of a sudden, now if you go back and you look at the footage of Times Square, when I'm standing on stage, when you look to the left over my shoulder, there's a huge sign that says Chicago. And it's so crazy because the Lord told me the next assignment is to go to the next portal. The next portal is in Chicago. Now, check this out, Pastor Larry. We reach out to stadiums for our next conference, the Breakers Conference, all over America. We were willing to do it anywhere. We would go to Dallas. We'd go to LA. I mean, anywhere that would give, any stadium that would say yes. Every single one of them said no. The only one that said yes was Chicago. So now we're going to step into this new assignment, October 26th, to rend the skies, and in that spiritual portal. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say something about Chicago.
Come on, please do.
So incredible. I made a short this morning based on what I preached on about the parallels of 1968.
Yes.
And let me just tell you, when I heard you say this week, you said these words, it shook me. You said, people say history repeats itself. It doesn't, it rhymes. When I heard that, I was like, that explains it. That was such a revelation to me, because God was speaking to me that he's bringing all things full circle. In 1968, get this, Dr. King was assassinated. Robert Kennedy Sr. was running for president. While he's running for president, he was assassinated. Lyndon Johnson was the Democratic candidate, and he removed himself just before the Democratic convention. He was replaced. The Democratic convention in 1968 was in Chicago. During the summer of 1968, colleges were filled with protests, protesting the war. Over 100,000 permit requests have already been made for the streets of Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. They are going to protest in the street, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel. All of the things that are going on with Donald Trump and all this are going to be happening in the streets of Chicago. I want to say this to you, Pastor.
Come on.
It is not by chance that the only city that said yes to you was Chicago.
Wow.
Because in the spirit realm, God knew what you were going to have to come in after that was going to happen in the streets of that city. And because I believe that's going to happen, I believe in August, and you're coming in October. And then in a few days after your convention is the election, which is probably the most strategic election in the history of this country. In just a matter of days, God needs you to come in and war in Chicago against the demons that are going to be on the streets of Chicago. I'm telling you, this Breakers Conference is a part of that full circle. God knew what was going to happen in this year, in 2024, in Chicago. And that's why no one else would say yes. They couldn't say yes because it couldn't be anywhere else but there.
Right now, I'm on the edge of my seat. Bishop, I cannot thank you enough for that revelation. Let me tell you why, because you're speaking in an apostolic dimension. And that's really what you're doing, like a general over the map. And God's given you that ability. I want to affirm that in you. I've seen the way that God uses you, and it's like a general over a map, looking at the nation and seeing how these things, really what you're doing as a general is you're speaking into the strategies of the enemy, and you're saying, I already know their playbook because prophetically it's been handed to me. But this is the thing I need to tell some of you in the chat. You're awakening right now. Some of you feel like you just had 3 cups of coffee, and it's because the Holy Spirit is awakening you. And this is what I'm saying. We almost sold out this stadium, and we had to do it through Ticketmaster. They actually told me something, and I want to say this publicly and put this on record real quick. And I'm going to rebuke a lot of people, but it needs to be done. When we went to go, every event that I did, I try to do them, historically, if you follow my ministry, if I can do an event for free, I do it for free. But you all know it's not free. It's just somebody else pays for it. And I've always done that. But this event, this stadium said, we refuse to let you do it for free. And I said, why? What if I just buy all the seats out? And they're like, you can't. It has to go through Ticketmaster. And this is why. They said, because Christians will register for events and never show up. And they said the reason why stadiums across America would not actually give you an opportunity is because they know that Christians will register for things and not show up. And when they heard you say you want to do it for free, they know that to a Christian, free means worthless. And they don't understand the value of how much these things cost. And so they said you have to do it through Ticketmaster. So I said, what's the cheapest we can make the tickets on Ticketmaster? Which is what I did. And if you go look at the Ticketmaster for our event, it's ridiculous. It's like $20 a ticket, whatever, $30 a ticket, and they take most of it through the cuts. And I'm still coming out hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this event, even at that. But the reason why I bring that up is because first of all, I want some, poverty mindset. You got Christians that'll pay, they got a Disney Plus subscription, a Netflix subscription, and they went out to eat 17 times in the last week, but then they're mad about a $20 ticket for a conference. There's a spirit behind that. But let me just say this. When we were looking at the tickets, they said, Mike, you're on track to sell this thing out. There's only the upper bowl that's remaining. And I went up there. There's not a bad seat in this whole place. The way they laid it out is very strategic. But I'm telling many of you guys right now, the Holy Spirit quickened me and said, Mike, you need to, because I was like, well, if we're going to sell it out, do I just do a couple more pushes? And the Lord said, no, I want intercessors to fill those seats.
Wow.
And that's what he told me. So he's like, so I'm telling you guys right now, you might be able to get a seat if you get one today, the next several days, they're selling out, but I don't want spectators. I need intercessors. And let me just say this, Pastor Larry, it's like, so you have the Democratic convention that's happening in Chicago, and then we're weeks away or days away after this conference from the election that's happening in this nation. And I keep telling people the Breakers Conference will be historic, and they're like, oh, he's hyping it. This is emotionalism. Look at, so you're telling me I'm in Chicago on accident? And this is, and all these things are converging. You're telling me that New York City was emotionalism and New York City was us just conjuring up some kind of, charismatic Pentecostal craziness. But then you're telling me Lou Engle comes in after me and he gets all these prophetic confirmations. And now he's making New York City the basis for what's happening next. It's like there are people who don't see in the spirit. They have a critical spirit. They're carnal, but the ones that do see in the spirit see. And so I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but if you're watching this right now, I want to encourage you, if the Lord is telling you to come to this event, I need intercessors and prayer warriors, because just like you said, the spiritual and the natural realm are connected. And some of you still don't have a revelation that intercessors and prophetic people can actually alter the course of history before it's history. So we can change the course of this nation. And I believe that what will happen in Chicago, October 26th, will actually, it'll change the course. And just like you said, Hurricane Beryl, they said, oh, it's just going to hit Mexico. Don't worry about it. And then it switched directions. And when it switched, man, I'm getting a revelation right now. It switched directions, came into the U.S. and actually followed the course of the eclipse. But
Yes.
then all of a sudden, now look, Donald Trump's on stage and he just so happens to move his head. He changed the direction of his head and it went from an assassination to an injury. And so there's something about switching direction. There's something about and we can switch a direction into destruction, or we can switch a direction into redemption. And I believe, man, Chicago is in the middle of the United States. And I believe that our call is to turn the head of America just like Donald Trump's head turned, and it will be redemption instead of destruction. I believe that we've got to get into that stadium. And even if you look at where Chicago is, it's like the head of America. It's literally the shoulders.
Yep.
The West Coast and the East Coast is the shoulders of America. And Chicago, and look at my hat, shy. Chicago is literally like the head of our nation. It's right in the middle. And we've got to get together at the Breakers Conference and turn the head of our nation so that this bullet, it's redemption instead of destruction. Now, if that's not a word, I don't know what is.
Woo! I feel like a Ric Flair anointing on me right now. Woo, baby. That is a word, baby. Woo!
Somebody pin the comment for the Breakers, or not pin the comment. Join the Telegram. I'll send this, but we need to send the Breakers tickets link out for people who want to go, or go to Ticketmaster. But the other thing too is the crazier thing, and you can't make this up. So my book is coming out, and it's called Inherit Your Freedom, and it's right before the election. So think about that.
Wow.
The book is called Inherit Your Freedom, and it's right before the election. You just, there's so many things, and it's all about being battle ready, going into your lineage, going into your heritage, and breaking those curses, getting free, finding out your God divine destiny. I'm putting that in the comments like crazy right now. So pre-order the book as well. But that's what I'm saying. You can't make this up. It's all converging. I see it. Pastor Larry sees it. Do you see it?
Come on. Do you see it? Wake
The
up.
storms are here.
Hey, Pastor, you know, and you just think about it. Think about the principality that is assigned to Chicago, that has had a hold on Chicago. Think about how many times in the news you hear, and we love Chicago, but people in Chicago would agree to this. Every weekend, this amount of people was shot and killed. The crime is through the roof, all this kind of stuff. I just believe in God that when the Breakers Conference is through, the intercessors coming in and literally not just breaking the strongholds that are in that building and the things that people are dealing with. This is a prophetic, apostolic, strategically positioned time and place conference that is strategically there to affect the nation. You said it's the head of the nation. Well, how about this? The Bible says that when the people come together in Psalm 133, it's like the oil that was poured upon the head, and it went down to the beard and to the rest of the body. Can we believe that the oil of the last day oil of God is going to be poured on the head of this nation in Chicago, run down to the beard and to the body? And when we go through this, not just who is the president, I know it's not about who the president is, not our savior, but I'm telling you, something's going to shift this fall, and I believe it's going to begin. Something's going to shift in the heavenlies in that Breakers Conference, and the oil is going to be poured on the head of this nation. When you look at this nation and the layout, and it's going to flow down, and I believe we're going to see one last move of God like this world has never seen.
I'm in awe. I mean, you're speaking. I mean, you are speaking. I'm sitting here because I'm in the chat right now, and I mean, y'all just tell me what you're thinking. I mean, your jaw has to be on the floor. It has to be on the floor right now. I mean, and that's the thing is right now when you talk about unity, they were in one mind and one accord in the upper room. And everybody in that upper room. And there's some of y'all that you're about to miss your upper room experience because you're not getting into one mind and one accord. It's time to get into the flow. It's time to get into the prophetic flow. And I'm just so thankful for you. I'm 7 minutes over the hour. I got to get out of here. I'm about to get in trouble with you. We get in trouble every time we're together. Guy, okay.
Can I say one quick thing?
Please.
If you are in flying, driving, whatever distance, Pastor Mike's going to be at Solid Rock Rock Church just before the Breakers Conference.
Yeah.
You're going to kick off our 30th annual Elevate Conference on October 9th. We're going to have a move of God, and we're going to send you to Chicago.
Yeah, and I even believe that's a prophetic timing. I really do. It's just there's because wow, it's like north, south, east, and west. Like the Lord's doing something. And so yeah, I'll be there, guys. Also, we're linking to Pastor Larry's channel in the description. Please go over there and subscribe. I mean, I'm always chilling watching him whenever he's on if I can. And you and your wife just have incredible insights. And so, well, you guys know now that you just seen him tee off for the last hour with us. But guys, go over to his channel, hit that subscribe button, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Pastor Mike. It is always a pleasure and an honor, and I thank God for you, brother.
Come on, I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Wow, y'all, that was crazy. I mean, I'm like, I'm physically buzzing right now. I just because. Like I think what's happening is that as God gets ready to push us into this next level, you know what I mean? He gets ready to like thrust us into this next stage. I think sometimes it's like the biggest problem is not demons. It's Christians who don't get it. That's why Jesus turned to his disciples and said, hey, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Couldn't you just stay up one more hour? Couldn't you just watch and pray? And it was like he was trying to get them to click in, but it was after the Holy Spirit came upon them that they actually received power and disciples became apostles. And so we really need this unity experience. We need this upper room experience to be empowered by the